My daughter-in-law looked me straight in the eye and said, "My whole family is spending Christmas here. It's only 25 people." I was standing in my own kitchen, still holding the dish towel, still smelling the soup I had cooked for her dinner. For years, I bit my tongue cleaned. Their mess smiled through the insults. But that day, something inside me snapped. I smiled back and said, "Perfect. I'm going on vacation. You cook and clean. I'm not a servant." She went pale, like she'd just seen a ghost. She thought I was bluffing. She didn't know I'd already packed my bags, locked away every dish, and moved the house into a trust. She didn't know the storm that was about to hit her perfect Christmas. Before I share my story, I'd love to know you're here with me. Drop a simple hi in the comments so I know you're listening, or tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far my story can reach. Thank you. And now, let me tell you everything. If you believe no woman should ever be treated like a servant in her own home, subscribe to our channel. I'm Junia Vale, and this is how I finally took my house and my dignity back. The morning she said it, the air in Willow House felt colder than the snow outside. Camille didn't knock. She never did. Her red dress shimmered like it had something to prove as she clicked her heels across my kitchen tiles each step, like a small declaration of ownership. "My whole family is spending Christmas here," she announced like a queen addressing her servant. "It's only 25 people." Only 25. She said it with that same sugary confidence she used whenever she wanted something done without saying please. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I stirred my coffee, slowly watching the cream dissolve into tiny whirlpools, measuring the silence between us. I'd learned that silence was more powerful than arguing. She mistook my quiet for submission. Camille sat down at the kitchen island, crossed her legs, and began to list names: Lucian and Helena from Miami, her cousins, Sable and Mason, her uncle's twins, even her second cousins who simply adore the snow. Every name was a weight she was already placing on my shoulders. "We'll need at least 3 turkeys," she said, tapping her phone like she was dictating to a staff member. "And your chocolate silk pie, of course. It's practically family tradition now." She smiled, rehearsed and polished. "Oh, and I'll need you to decorate the house by the 20th. I want it to look perfect for Instagram photos." My spoon stopped mid-stir. The smell of cinnamon from yesterday's candle lingered faintly in the air. I looked at her and said, "Perfect." She smiled wider, thinking she'd won. "Perfect," I repeated. "Because I'm going on vacation. You can cook and clean yourselves. I'm not a servant." The smile froze on her face, color draining like someone had pulled a plug. "What I'm going away for Christmas," I said, my tone calm enough to scare her. "You and your family can use the house, but you'll be responsible for it. All of it." Her lips parted. For the first time since she'd married my son, Camille looked small, like the act had finally cracked. "But my family is flying in. You can't just—" "Of course I can," I said. "It's my house." The words landed like the sound of glass breaking. She turned to the stairs, calling for Miles, her favorite shield. He came down half-dressed, rubbing sleep from his eyes, already defeated. "Mom, maybe we can all just calm down," he said softly, glancing at Camille. "It's just 1 week. Can't we—" "No," I interrupted, steady and sharp. "I've done 5 years of 1-week favors." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You know, Tiffany, sorry, Camille just wants family together. She doesn't mean to. She means exactly what she says," I said. "And I'm done pretending not to hear it." Camille's tone turned brittle. "This house will be ours one day anyway." That sentence landed harder than she knew. My eyes met hers. "Interesting," I said. "But until that day, if it ever comes, it's mine." The silence that followed was thick enough to feel. I finished my coffee, rinsed the cup, and turned off the light above the counter. Their whispers started before I reached the stairs. Camille's sharp and desperate Miles muted and tired. I closed my bedroom door, leaving them with their shock. By the window, the lake shimmered under thin light. I opened my desk drawer, slid out the heavy envelope I'd prepared weeks earlier, and touched the red circle marked on the calendar, December 23rd. the day everything would begin. If they thought my decision was impulsive, they were wrong. I wasn't walking away. I was stepping into control. 3 months before that morning, a thunderstorm had rolled across Asheville. The house was quiet except for the rain tapping against the window panes. I was looking for an old linen tablecloth in Miles' downstairs office, a habit I'd never shaken cleaning up after everyone. But when I opened the bottom drawer of his desk, I found something I wasn't supposed to see. A leather ledger sat on top of a pile of loose papers, the kind of ledger my late husband once used for business accounts. Curiosity made me open it. Inside were credit card statements I didn't recognize, all in Miles's name, but clearly not his spending. Louis Vuitton, Saks, private spas in Atlanta. A total that made my stomach clench over $50,000. At first I thought it had to be a mistake, but the deeper I looked, the clearer it became. Camille's name appeared in nearly every email printed and paper-clipped behind those bills. In one, she boasted to a friend about keeping Miles busy so he won't notice the shopping. In another, she explained how Mother Vale's house could make a great asset to secure a little investment loan. Mother Vale and me. I sat back, my pulse loud in my ears. There was a contract draft labeled Personal Loan Agreement. In the margin, someone had scribbled secured by real estate. Willow House. My hands shook. They were planning to use my home, my life's work, as collateral for Camille's debt. The rain outside grew heavier. I flipped through more pages and found something worse, a scanned copy of Miles' driver's license and social security card attached to an online application. The date matched one of the new credit accounts. My throat went dry. She'd used his identity without him knowing. Then came an email that broke the last thread of denial. We'll sell Willow after Christmas. Once it's in my name, we can flip it and finally start our real life. That was the plan. To host her glamorous Christmas charm, her wealthy relatives sell the house and bury the debts under my name. I closed the folder carefully. I didn't cry. Not then. I'd spent too many years crying over men who thought kindness was the same as weakness. I knew better now. Instead, I took out my phone, snapped photos of every page, and uploaded them to a hidden drive. Then I called Jonas Vale, my brother-in-law, a lawyer in Charlotte, who still respected me. Jonas, I said, keeping my voice steady, I need to make some legal updates. Quietly. He hesitated. Is this about the house? Yes, I said. And the people who think it already belongs to them. That night, I made a list. Transfer savings to a new account. File paperwork to protect the deed. Start the trust. Prepare the vacation. I didn't sleep much. I kept hearing Camille's words echoing from some earlier argument. You just like to feel useful. Maybe she was right. I did like to feel useful. But for the first time in years, I was going to be useful to myself. The next morning, sunlight cut through the storm clouds. I watched the lake glint silver as I placed the envelope of copied documents inside my desk, upstairs the same envelope that waited for me months later when Camille walked into my kitchen in her red dress. That's when I knew what I had to do. If I confronted her, then she'd twist it, cry, and play the victim. But if I waited, if I prepared, it would be her own words, her own actions that undid her. I locked the drawer, took a deep breath, and whispered to myself, if I get angry today, I lose. But if I prepare right, I win. And from that moment on, every smile, every polite nod, every cup of coffee I poured was part of a plan she would never see coming. The law office smelled faintly of paper and lemon polish, the kind of scent that means something permanent is about to happen. Jonas sat across from me, his glasses low on his nose, scanning the draft documents. So once we move Willow House into the Vale Family Trust, he said no one can sell or mortgage it without your signature. Miles remains a beneficiary, but your daughter-in-law is excluded entirely. You'll be the sole trustee. His voice was calm, practical. If they ever try to use it as collateral again, they'll hit a wall of legal steel. I nodded. That's all I needed to hear. He leaned back, folding his hands. You're not just leaving for the holidays, Junia. You're drawing a line for the rest of your life. Don't win with anger. Win with structure. On the drive back to Asheville, the radio hummed low carols, but I barely listened. I thought about Camille's words. This house will be ours one day. Not anymore. The snow along the highway blurred into the pale horizon, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years, relief, mixed with quiet defiance. When I arrived home, I called Paula, the only person who had ever stayed loyal after retiring. "Paula," I said softly, "I'm leaving town on the 22nd. Could you stop by the next morning around 8 to return the holiday linens? If anyone asks where I am, tell them the truth. I'm taking a vacation." Her chuckle warmed through the phone. "About time, Miss Vale. They've been working you like staff for too long." That night, I set my plan in motion. I emptied the pantry and refrigerator until the shelves looked like a photograph from a real estate listing. I wrapped my grandmother's china and locked it away, folded every Christmas tablecloth into the cedar trunk upstairs, sealed the box of ornaments, and pocketed the key. Then I logged onto my laptop, composed 4 careful messages. Each email began the same way: "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Stone, I'm writing because I'm worried about the kids. They've been struggling more than they admit, and I'd value your advice on how to help them manage the holidays." Beneath that polite pretense, I accidentally attached PDF scans of the loan agreements, the unpaid credit cards, the letter bearing Camille's forged signature. The tone was friendly, even affectionate, a concerned mother, not a whistleblower. I sent copies to Lucian and Helena, to her cousin Sable, and to her brother-in-law Mason. I closed the laptop, heart steady. By morning, replies trickled in. Helena's message was short. "We'll come early on the 23rd. Please don't say a word to Camille yet." Lucian's followed a few minutes later. "Understood. Let's keep this quiet until we're face to face." Mason wrote something that made my stomach twist and my resolve sharpen. "Funny thing, Camille asked me a month ago to appraise Willow House for potential sale. Said it was a family decision." Sable's note came last. "The credit application you sent looks suspicious. If she used Miles's ID, that's a serious problem." By noon, every fuse was lit. I spent the rest of the day tying up the last loose ends. I canceled the housekeeping service. I left a polite voicemail for the caterer confirming that the holiday party was off. Then I printed my hotel confirmation and placed it on top of my suitcase, Riverfront Inn, December 22nd, 26 room, with a view of the lake. That evening, the snow returned, soft flakes catching in the porch light. I brewed one last cup of tea in my kitchen, the same room where Camille had once ordered me to make 3 turkeys, and walked slowly through the house. Every room felt lighter without her perfume and her entitlement in the air. I stopped by my desk, glanced at the calendar. The 23rd was circled in red. When I zipped my suitcase, the phone vibrated. A text from Helena glowed on the screen. "We'll be there at 8 a.m. 23rd. Thank you for warning us." I smiled. The stage was set. For once, Christmas would not be mine to clean up after it would be theirs to survive. The morning of December 23rd came white and quiet. Snow crusted the pine branches by the lake, the air thick with frost. From my window at the Riverfront Inn, I could see the road curling toward Willow House like a silver ribbon. Down there, they were waking up to the kind of Christmas I had left them. In the house, Camille rose early, humming as she slipped into a silk robe. Her reflection in the mirror still looked like a hostess on a magazine cover until she walked into the kitchen. The silence hit her first. No smell of coffee, no roast in the oven, no twinkle lights from the living room. The counters were bare. The refrigerator door opened to nothing but light. The pantry shelves were stripped clean. "Miles," she called, panic rising. "Where's the food upstairs?" Miles shuffled out, half awake. "What do you mean, where's the food?" "It's in the..." He stopped when he saw the empty shelves. Camille opened the cabinets one by one. Every dish, every tablecloth, every decoration gone. She tugged at the cupboard where I kept my china. The key didn't fit. I had changed the lock. "Call her," she snapped. "Call your mother right now." From my hotel room, the phone began to vibrate. Camille calling. I watched the name flash 3 times, then fade. A minute later, Miles calling. I let it ring. Then the voicemail alert appeared. Her voice cracked through the speaker. "Margaret, no Junia, please. I need help. They're here. They're all coming, and there's nothing in the house. Please." I set the phone down beside my coffee cup and whispered, "You'll manage your own celebration." By 10 o'clock, cars began to crawl up the snowy drive. Through the binoculars I'd borrowed from the hotel front desk, I saw the first black SUV stop at the gate. Lucian and Helena stepped out bundled in coats, their expressions stiff from the cold and from what they were about to find. One by one, more vehicles arrived until the driveway looked like a parking lot for the uninvited. Inside, Camille rushed to greet them, lipstick-smudged hair falling loose. "Mother, father, you're early." Helena glanced past her shoulder into the bare foyer. "Where are the decorations, darling?" "Oh, Mother Vale went to the market." Camille lied quickly. "She'll be right back." Lucian frowned. In this weather, Camille forced a laugh that cracked halfway through. "You know her. She loves a last-minute errand." But as the guests filed in, their eyes caught the emptiness, the undecorated tree, the missing dining chairs, the cold hearth. Conversations turned into whispers. In less than an hour, confusion spread like spilled wine. When the questions became too many, Camille slipped into the hallway and dialed again. I didn't answer. Downstairs, Paula's timing was impeccable. She arrived with a paper bag shaking the snow from her coat. "I just came to return the Christmas linens," she said to Helena, who opened the door. "Where is Mrs. Vale?" Helena asked. "Oh, she left for her trip," Paula answered, oblivious to the eruption that sentence caused. "Said the house was theirs to handle this year." Lucian's eyes narrowed. "Trip, yes, ma'am. She's staying at the Riverfront Inn. Room with a view of the lake." By the time Paula left the living room buzzed with anger, Camille tried to laugh it off, insisting it was a misunderstanding, but the doubt in her parents' faces said otherwise. Lucian stepped aside to call me himself. "Mrs. Vale," he said, when I finally picked up. His tone was polite but cold. "I think we should discuss the matter of the finances you sent us." "Not now," I said evenly. "Ask your daughter. She has all the answers you're looking for." He exhaled sharply, as if realizing the depth of the trap his family had walked into. By afternoon, the snow thickened into a storm, the roads iced over. The guests couldn't leave even if they wanted to. 25 relatives trapped inside a half-empty house. No food, no decorations, no hostess. Only Camille pacing between rooms, her perfect Christmas collapsing, minute by minute. From my window across the lake, I could see their silhouettes moving behind the frosted glass, Helena gesturing sharply. Miles with his head in his hands, Camille frozen by the fireplace. I sipped my coffee, the taste of roasted beans cutting through the chill. The phone buzzed again, another voicemail from Miles this time. "Mom, please, everyone's upset. Just tell me what to do." I closed my eyes and whispered to no one learn. As darkness fell, the storm pinned them in completely. I turned off the lights in my room, letting the glow from Willow House flicker faintly in the distance. Somewhere in that storm, truths were unraveling secrets I had already exposed to their family lies that were finally being tested against silence. I didn't leave to hide. I left so they could feel what it meant when I was gone. When my phone vibrated once more, it was a message from Helena. "We're staying overnight. In the morning, we need to talk." Outside, the snow kept falling heavy and slow. I leaned against the window pane, watching the light shimmer on the frozen lake, and whispered, "The truth always arrives early, doesn't it?" Then I closed the curtains, leaving Willow House to its lesson. Morning came gray and sour. The storm had pinned everyone inside, and by the time the house stirred to life, the living room looked like a waiting room for bad news coats draped over chairs, half-empty paper cups, a cold pizza box on the coffee table. Helena stood in front of the fireplace and called everyone to sit. No tree lit, no music, no presents. just breath in the cold air and the scrape of chairs against the floor. From the hotel, I watched the driveway through the glass phone in my hand, emails pinging in like distant thunder. Helena started with my name. We received documents from Mrs. Vale, she said, steady but hurt. We need to discuss what they mean. Lucian opened a folder and pulled out the statements I'd sent. These show outstanding balances and cash advances, he said, looking directly at Camille. They're in Miles's name, but the spending isn't. Camille's face went tight, then slack. She's punishing me, she said, pointing at the ceiling as if I were hiding there. She's always hated me. Sable clicked open her laptop, turned it so the room could see, and started walking the family through line items and totals. Charges from boutiques. Camille bragged about payments past due a personal loan file with a note that read, "Secured by real estate. Willow House." She tapped the screen. "This clause references the property here. Did you tell the lender you could use this house as collateral?" Silence fell like a curtain. Mason cleared his throat. "A month ago, she asked me to appraise the house. He said eyes on the floor. Said the family planned to sell after the holidays." Murmurs rose. The room tilted away from Camille. She turned on Miles. He knew she said voice thin. He knew we needed an investment. He told me it was fine. Miles shook his head. Panic showing. "I thought you meant a pop-up shop. You said it was temporary." His voice cracked, a boy's voice, not a man's. Helena stepped forward and for the first time in her life, slapped her daughter. The sound cut through the room. "You made fools of us," she said, not loud, but lethal. Camille fled upstairs. Lucian, breathing hard, stepped into the hallway and called me. "How long have you known?" he asked. I watched a gull slice the lake and said, "Long enough to stop cleaning up after them." He exhaled then, thanked me this time, like a man who understood the debt he owed to the truth. Back in the living room, Sable found more emails where Camille borrowed from cousins promising repayment once Junia passes and leaves the house. A tremor moved across the room. Then Sable pulled up a scanned application with Miles's ID attached. "This account appears to have been opened using his documents," she said. "If he didn't authorize it, that's identity fraud." Mason swore under his breath. Lucian closed the folder. "All support ends today," he announced. "Every cent you took must be repaid or we'll pursue it." Minutes later, chaos. Running feet upstairs, a shout, doors opening. Miles called me breathless. "Mom, she took sleeping pills," he said, voice shredded. "Not many, but enough to scare us." I closed my eyes, pain pushing through my ribs, and then passing. "Get water in her," I said. "Keep her talking. She chose this. She'll have to choose her way back." I hung up and wrote one email to Helena. "I'll be back by noon. Don't leave. Everyone needs to hear the last part." I sat on the edge of the hotel bed and let the silence settle. Sometimes the loudest thing a woman can do is step out of the room and refuse to be used. Sometimes the lesson only lands when the person who always saved the day decides not to. By 11, I was in a cab, gliding along the road that wrapped the lake like a ring. Phones kept buzzing with updates and apologies and pleas. I put them face down in my lap and watched my house grow larger through the falling snow. At the gate, I paid the driver, stepped out into the hush, and walked up the path I'd shoveled alone for years. They were already waiting, their faces lined with a fatigue that had nothing to do with sleep. I put my hand on the door I'd opened for everyone and let it swing inward. I had nothing to prove, only boundaries to state. Chapter 6. The Return and the Reading. "I'm not here for apologies," I said, voice steady, the house listening. "I'm here for boundaries." Jonas opened the first folder and read aloud. "The property, known as Willow House, has been transferred into the Vale Family Trust. The trustee of record is Junia Vale. No party may sell mortgage or otherwise encumber the property without the trustee's signature." He looked up. "This is effective as of this morning." A sound moved through the room, shock, then resignation. He opened the next document. "Amendment to Will. Beneficiaries clarified. Miles Vale retains conditional right of residence at the trustee's discretion. Camille Stone Vale is removed as beneficiary. Miles closed his eyes, then nodded, once grateful and ashamed. Camille let out a broken noise and pressed the blanket to her mouth. I took the last folder and spoke myself. A report regarding the misuse of Miles's identification has been filed. If anyone wants to contest it, they can. But the evidence is intact. Lucian bowed his head. Helena's shoulders folded. Sable's eyes hardened. Numbers had become wounds she could count. Camille lurched to her feet. "You destroyed my life," she cried, voice hoarse. "You turned everyone against me." "No," I said, quiet enough to cool the air. "You did that when you decided other people existed to make your life look good." Jonas handed me an envelope. I slid out a letter, glanced at it, then passed it to him to read. "This confirms Ms. Stone Vale requested an appraisal of Willow House for sale last month," he said. Mason nodded, once guilty and relieved to be done with secrets. I placed a small digital recorder on the table. Paula, who had slipped in without fanfare and stood by the doorway, cleared her throat. "I hate to add to the hurt," she said, eyes on me, "but I think you should hear this." She pressed play. Camille's voice floated into the room, bright and careless, from some old phone call. "The old woman won't live forever. Once the house is ours, I'll finally breathe." The recording ended and the room sat in the kind of silence that makes people choose who they are. Camille covered her face. Helena cried without sound. I signed the trust documents in front of them, the pen sliding easily like a key in the right lock. I passed the folder to Jonas. "File the originals," I said. Then I set a small brass key on the table and let it ring softly on the wood. "This opens the china cabinet," I said. "From now on, whoever lives here has to earn this key." I turned to Camille. "There's a final document for you," I said. Jonas placed a single-page agreement before her acknowledgement of the trust and amendment withdrawal of any claim or contest agreement to respect the residence rules. She read the first line and refused. Then Miles touched her wrist, gentle and sure. "Sign it," he said. "We can't live like this anymore." Her hand shook as she wrote her name. Lucian stepped forward. "Mrs. Vale," he said, formal again. "On behalf of my family, I apologize. We believed what we wanted to believe." Helena faced me, eyes red. "If I had known you would have done the same thing I did," I said. "You would have protected your home." I looked around the room that had held so many nights of labor I never got credit for. "No one can take what's mine," I said, "unless I decide it isn't mine anymore." The sentence didn't rise. It landed, and with it, the weight slid off my back. I could have thrown them all out. I didn't. "There's food in the car," Jonas said quietly, and I smiled. "Bring it in," I told him. "If we can sit here without lying to each other, we can eat." The surprise softened a few faces. Sable took the bags from him. Mason set plates. Helena moved a lamp closer. Miles found matches for the candles. Paula slipped to the kitchen and returned with water for Camille, who whispered, "Thank you," like a person learning a new language. We ate simple things on plain plates, and for the first time in years, no one waited for me to stand up first. When the dishes were stacked and the room fell quiet again, I asked Jonas for the time. He checked his watch. "Midnight," he said. Christmas Eve rolling into Christmas Day, the snow at the window easing into stillness. No one moved toward the door. Every eye came back to me. I drew a calm breath. "Now," I said, "we can start over. Or leave forever." I asked everyone to take a seat around the dining table. No one spoke. Outside, the wind scraped along the eaves. Inside, candlelight made the silverware look like small, patient witnesses. I kept my voice level. I told them about the 5 years I'd spent as the help the menus I learned by heart, because someone barked orders instead of saying, "Please," the parties I plated, while the hostess thanked herself online. I told them how one rainy night I opened a drawer and found debt stacked like kindling, how I photographed every page, met with a lawyer, and moved the house out of reach. No one interrupted. Camille cried softly. Helena stared at her hands. Miles stared at the floor. I slid a photocopy across the table, her personal loan agreement with the note secured by real estate. Willow House and the line that said I'd be inherited soon. A few people sucked in their breath at once. Helena reached over and took my fingers, her voice small. I didn't know. I nodded. People rarely know when not knowing is useful. Lucian tightened his jaw and said he'd send the documents to council to unwind any claim that touched my property. Camille shot up in her chair. I was trying to save face. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I stood slow enough that the chair didn't scrape. Face can't be built with other people's obedience. I turned to my son and finally made him look at me. And you let someone turn your mother into a housemaid. How long did you plan to stay quiet? His mouth opened and closed. I'm sorry, he whispered. Sorry doesn't fix anything, I said. Action does. I placed a small camera on the table. Tonight's reading and the discussion earlier were recorded, I said. Not to humiliate anyone, but to protect the facts if anyone tries to rewrite them later. Helena asked for a copy for her attorney. I nodded. Across from me, hope drained out of Camille's face. She slid to her knees and begged, but I didn't move to lift her. I set a single sheet in front of her instead, the residence rules plain and enforceable. Sign it, I said. This isn't punishment. It's a boundary. She signed with a trembling hand. I signed beneath as trustee. Miles cleared his throat and spoke to the room, not just to me. I'm staying in the small room upstairs for a while, he said. I'll fix the porch and the gutters and anything else that needs doing. I want to put the house right with my hands. He looked at me as if asking permission to try. I gave him one short nod. I laid the papers out one by one and explained each clause like weather reports for a storm that had already passed the trust, the amendment, the access rules, the reporting of the credit fraud. I didn't raise my voice once. I didn't need to. The truth did the heavy lifting. I don't need anyone's pity, I said at the end. I need respect in my own home. I let the words settle, then added, Christmas isn't the time to pretend we love each other. It's the time to tell the truth for the first time. When the signatures dried, I cleared a corner of the table and brought out a small cake I had baked before leaving, wrapped and hidden in the trunk, like a promise I made to myself. I cut even slices and passed them around. No one apologized. Spoons touched plates, metal tapped porcelain, and the sounds felt cleaner than words. Tomorrow, I said quietly, the real Christmas begins. Outside, the wind unclenched. Moonlight spilled across the snow like an answer. Dawn came thin and bright over the lake. The house breathed differently, like it had set down a crate it was tired of carrying. I boiled water, ground coffee, and watched steam curl into the clean, pale light. For the first time in years, quiet felt like company. Miles patted in hair, a mess, eyes raw but clear. He set out plates without being asked, slid bread into the toaster, rinsed. 2 mugs moved around the kitchen like it belonged to both of us in different ways. I'll stay a few days, he said, not pleading, just stating. I'll start with the porch. The boards are soft near the steps. I passed him the butter and a smile that didn't require permission. The phone rang. Jonas. His voice carried relief. The filings were recorded. The trust sat where no one could jostle it. The amendment was clean. You're covered, Junia, he said. All the way around. We hung up after he promised to email stamped copies. Footsteps sounded on the stairs. Camille appeared with a small suitcase and yesterday's mascara faint under her eyes. She placed a single key on the table, the spare to the mudroom, and didn't look at me when she spoke. Thank you for not throwing me out, she said. I'm going to stay with my parents. I nodded toward the coffee pot and she shook her head. Learn to cook something simple before you come back, I said, not unkind. When you can care for yourself, we can talk like adults. She swallowed, took the suitcase, and left without slamming a door. I didn't watch the car go. I watched the light move across the lake. Miles took my hand the way he did when he was 6 and afraid of thunder. I won't let anyone treat you like staff again, he said. No one. I squeezed back. No one, can I answered, unless I say yes. We ate toast and eggs at the corner of the table that caught the warmest sun. I turned on the radio. A hymn drifted out simple and steady. I spoke the truth of it to myself and to him. I don't need revenge. I just needed my name back in my own house. Emails chimed, one from Helena written with care and no performance gratitude for the documentation, a promise to make amends to the cousins she'd misled, and an invitation come to Miami after the new year, not to be hosted but to be honored. I typed a short acceptance and felt the invitation land, not as flattery but as respect. Another ping a photo from Jonas of the stamped filings, the county seal crisp in the corner, and his note beneath it, "Freedom looks good on you." I laughed. Once the kind that leaves warmth behind. Later, I pulled on boots and stepped into the yard. The storm had broken clean. Icicles glittered like new glass under a thin sun. Near the stone path, the snow had pulled back enough to show a green point pushing up through the earth, a daffodil sprout stubborn and early. I bent down and touched the leaf with the back of my finger. "You and me both," I said. By afternoon, I hung a small sign on the front gate, the letters dark and sure against the wood willow house. Private property, family trust. It didn't warn anyone off so much as it reminded me who held the keys. I didn't lock the door behind Camille that morning. I didn't have to. Forgiveness is a door you keep on the hinge, but boundaries are the frame that holds the house up. The lake turned to liquid silver. Church bells from across the water counted the hour soft and certain. I took my coffee to the porch and stood where the boards were still strong, the winter light laid over everything like a clean sheet. There were no presents stacked under a glittering tree, no applause for a perfect table, no photos to prove anything to anyone. There was just quiet and the sound of a home remembering its shape. This Christmas had no spectacle, no grand finale. It had a name back where it belonged, a son with a hammer, and time a house that finally answered to the person who loved it first. And in the hush that followed, I understood the gift I'd given myself, not a victory over anyone, only the simple right to live uninterrupted in the place I built.